When you're asked about your favorite video game character, who comes to mind? Are they a dashing, sarcastic fighter from a fantasy RPG? A cold, calculating, morally gray villain? Or a kind, mild-mannered hero weaved through a colorful world? Video games have a rich history of pushing the limits of storytelling, creating personalities you can't help but love, and infusing vibrant, memorable faces into engaging gameplay. They provide a haven to sink into for those seeking a new world to explore. However, for quite some time, a wide margin of players has gone underrepresented in the gaming sphere. Queer people have fought for representation in all types of media for as long as we can remember, hiding in 60s pulp novels and underground magazines. With the new and exciting art form of video games rising in popularity, we were given another mountain to tackle, and it hasn't been easy. In 2024, GLAAD found that under 2% of all distributed video games across major platforms feature LGBTQ+ characters. In spite of that number, many amazing pioneers over the years have led the way for future gamers and creatives to forge their own vibrant personalities and innovative worlds. Today, we're going to take a quick glide through history and learn all about the world of gay games. Or games. Or not, please don't click off. Let's learn about queerness, creativity, and hope. Before we hop in, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Fandom Forward. This is my first ever sponsorship, and it is one I feel very strongly about. Fandom Forward is a non-profit organization focused on turning fans into heroes, using pop culture and storytelling to make activism accessible, sustainable, and fun. Through real-life, hands-on training and tangible campaigns, they've created passionate leaders and creative, effective entry points into changing the world, piece by piece. I'm working with Fandom Forward to spread the word about their Save Our Progress campaign, a Get Out the Vote campaign designed to train and educate game fans on how to organize voting actions within their communities. When you play a game, you're often faced with the option to save your progress, a way to be sure that your hard work remains. We've moved forward so much in our lifetimes, and it's important to etch our progress down. The 2024 election is daunting, and it can feel draining, overwhelming, and hopeless at times. It's a challenging world to vote in right now, with fundamental rights being rolled back and fear for our future constantly looming. I know it's been hard to remain optimistic for me, and I'm sure many of you in this community feel it, but there is a better future for us, and there is something you can do. Save Our Progress aims to provide a walkthrough of the world of fan activism, tools and resources for getting your voice out there, and a better understanding of your personal goals. I've always been very intimidated by the thought of taking action and stepping up, but the idea of doing that with a community you relate to and an element of fun takes the edge off, even for my wimpy, shut-in, socially inept self. If you'd like to get involved and learn more about your power within fan communities, click the link below to fill out the Save Our Progress interest form. Don't worry, there's no commitment if you're like me and perpetually terrified of making plans. You'll simply receive updates and more information about the campaign. We've got this, and we can make a change. Thank you again to Fandom Forward, and let's hop into the history. We begin in the mid-1980s, an era where the first Nintendo console was released, home computers got their footing, and the best ABBA song came out, which is The Winner Takes It All, by the way. I won't be taking questions. The world was entering a state of technological advancement, sparking new hope for the future in many. But, as you're probably aware, the perspective on the queer community was, in contrast, harrowing. With the AIDS epidemic and sexuality-based fear-mongering of the time, it was incredibly difficult and dangerous to speak out and be respected as an LGBTQ+ person. But surprisingly enough, this era brings us the first video game characters made with us in mind. In 1985, during the rise of text-based Mac games, we saw the release of a French video game titled, oh, please excuse my accent, Le Crime du Parking, or Parking Crime in English. I'm sorry, I didn't take French in school, I'm suffering here, I'm trying my best. Le Crime du Parking tasked the player with solving a young woman's murder after she was found dead in a parking garage. As with most early video games, typed-in commands were used to navigate the storyline. Hidden within the files of this rudimentary computer program, we find the first queer character to ever hit the gaming world, a gay man named Paco. Now, my apologies for spoiling a 1985 text game, but Paco is in fact both a drug dealer and the culprit of the crime. Despite this character being a landmark and a very important first for queer people, he is immediately villainized, which is unfortunately the reality of early representation. This is the case for most media, though. Queer people were and are treated as punchlines and evil figures within stories. It is important to acknowledge the beginning but look forward to the future. At least we had ABBA. Following in 1986, Infocom, an American software company, released the interactive fiction game Moon Mist. You play as a young detective, again asked by friend Tamara Lynn to investigate her new home, a beautiful castle in England. Tamara herself is engaged to the castle's owner, Lord Jack, happy as can be to join his exorbitant family. That is, until she's fraught with visions of ghosts haunting the area. Moon Mist has several storylines to explore through your detective's eyes, one of them featuring both a lesbian and a bisexual woman. Vivian Pentry, the friend of Lord Jack, was once entangled with his former fiancée named Deirdre Hallam. Vivian grew jealous that her former lover chose Lord Jack over her, and her life ended by her own hand because of it. So, if you were wondering, the first ladies of gay gaming didn't exactly get a great ending either. It is shocking to me, however, that a bisexual woman was shown so early in gaming history when they're often left out nowadays. Interesting. Moving on to 1988, the American release of Super Mario Bros. 2 found its way to the NES. I'm sure everyone is firmly aware of Mario, so I feel no need to explain the game to you. However, you might not know what lies in the game's instruction manual. If you read instruction menus in game cartridges, we are two very different people, and I fear you deeply. Birdo, a pink enemy faced in the game, was referred to in the text as a boy who wanted to be a girl. It was also mentioned within the manual that she wanted to be called Birdetta, a more traditionally feminine version of her name. She also made a cameo in the 2008 game Captain Rainbow, where she was imprisoned for going into the women's bathroom. Yes, I am serious. Beginning in Mario Tennis, released in 2000, Birdo has only ever been referred to as a woman, and her trans-themed past has been almost completely buried by Nintendo. Not reassessed, not overlooked, but buried. In spite of Nintendo's attempts to cover her up, fans love Birdo and see her as a trans icon, being elated when she was added to Mario Kart 8 in the DLC. Love you, Birdo, you pink thing, hot pink bitch named Breakfast. Hitting 1989, we have my personal favorite entry on this list. During the ever-painful AIDS crisis, a developer named C.M. Ralph created and released Caper in the Castro, a pioneer, being the first video game to ever wholly focus on LGBTQ+ themes. The player fills the shoes of Tracker McWord I can't say on YouTube, a lesbian private detective on a mission to find her kidnapped friend. The friend in question, Tessie LaFemme, was actually a drag queen, which is so cool. While searching the in-game universe for Tessie, you're given the chance to explore the Castro, a real-life, historically gay neighborhood in San Francisco. The location itself remains a huge piece of queer expression to this day, and the immortalization of gay history makes this entry so beautiful to me. CM Ralph, I'm free Thursday, or Friday, or Saturday, or Sunday, or... The game was distributed via BBSs, or bulletin board systems. These were early computer softwares that allowed the uploading and downloading of data, sharing news, and even direct chatting at times. BBSs were often used for group interactions, especially among queer people and other marginalized groups. C.M. Ralph, inspired by the freedom and expression of the LGBTQ+ community in the Castro, wanted to give back. So, they developed Caper in the Castro as charityware and encouraged players to donate to AIDS relief organizations instead of paying for the software. The game not only functioned as representation, but as a way to help others in the community who were struggling greatly. A straight version was released for the mass market later on, titled Murder on Main Street, which was distributed by Heiser Software in mail-order catalogs. For many years, because of its small-scale distribution over early internet systems, Caper in the Castro was assumed to be lost media. But in 2017, Ralph was able to find a floppy disk of the game and preserve it for future generations to experience, and for an annoying bitch to talk about on YouTube. The game, in full, can now be played on the Internet Archive for free. As for CM Ralph, they're still creating to this day. I've linked their website down below. I highly recommend checking out their illustrations. They are beautiful. In the next year, 1990, Circuit's Edge was released. I want you to guess what role you take on in this game. Okay, I'm gonna give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Did you guess detective? Because if you did, you're correct. While running errands for your friend Saeed, who also happens to be a gay man, you are framed for a murder you did not commit. Ooh. Though an influential patron of yours clears your name with the police, you are asked to look further into the murder you supposedly committed, entering the deep underworld of criminal activity weaved throughout your city. In this game, we meet Yasmin, a post-op trans woman who, surprisingly, is treated with incredible dignity. Her transition is mentioned, but not gawked at or othered. Yasmin is a huge pinpoint in history as the first genderqueer video game character ever created. Honestly, look at her, she's like smoking, love her. Circuit's Edge even won the 1990 Best PC Adventure Game Award from the magazine Game Players. Unfortunately, many games released in the 1990s that featured queer characters focused predominantly on sex, which means that it's near impossible to discuss them on YouTube with censorship rules. However, this is nothing new. Queer people have been used as objects for sensual excitement rather than full, fleshed-out characters since the dawn of time. While I can't detail their content, it's important to mention that these games exist. I don't want to leave out this part of history, but YouTube can be hard to work with. All that being said, in 1993, Dracula Unleashed was published by Viacom New Media. Yes, that Viacom. In Dracula Unleashed, you take on the role of Alexander Morris, a businessman visiting London in the late 1800s to research the strange death of his brother Quincy. Through his investigation, Alexander finds out that the brother he knew kept many secrets, the largest one of all being his hand in destroying the infamous vampire, Count Dracula. While exploring the storyline, you meet a bookstore owner by the name of Alfred Horner. His sexuality isn't explicitly stated in the game's dialogue, but he is said to give romantic glances toward the player character and act stereotypically queer, aka feminine, fashionable, you know the drill. Alfred Horner is most likely the first ever gay character in a video game to be given a speaking role. Dracula Unleashed was a large production with a budget of over $2 million and was one of the first games to utilize full motion video. It is fondly remembered by so many, and from experience I can say gays will always find their way into vampire-related media. There's just something there, you know? Moving on to 1994, we saw Nintendo release Earthbound, a role-playing game still known for its personality and humor to this day. You play as a young boy named Ness, aided by a party of ragtag kids including Paula, Jeff, and Pooh. Together, you must collect melodies from various sanctuaries and defeat Gygus, a universe-destroying entity. The game has earned a cult following for its sardonic tone and genre subversion, but it also has another one of Nintendo's limited forays into gay culture. Earthbound's creator, Shigesato Itoi, revealed that he had written a character in the game to be queer, stating, "Well, for example, there's a gay person in Mother 2, Earthbound's Japanese title, a really passionate friend who lives in an England-like place. I designed him to be a gay child. In a real-life society, there are gay children, and I have many gay friends as well, so I thought it would be nice to add one in the game too." Though it was never explicitly confirmed, many people believe that said character was the aforementioned Jeff's longtime best friend, Tony. Tony was portrayed as a loyal, dedicated person with a large heart and a soft spot for his pal. A letter he wrote to Jeff reads, "Dear Jeff, everything's going really great here. I wish I could have gone with you on your adventure, even just part of the way, but instead I'm sitting here, waiting for you in Winters. I can't wait to see your cheerful face. I bet your glasses are dirty. If you come back, I'll clean them for you. Like I said, I'm waiting for you. Yours truly, Tony. P.S. Don't show this letter to anyone." As we enter 1995, we venture into the later years of the 90s, where video game culture begins to make an even larger mark on the social sphere. Forums and communities representing niche subjects and groups became more and more accessible to the everyday person, and queer people are getting bolder and prouder by the day. Alternative scenes are popping up, new stories and artists are seeing the light, and we're headed towards the fateful Y2K. Though LGBTQ+ people were still mostly relegated to the shadows, more and more inclusive games trickled in slowly. In 1995, The Orion Conspiracy was published by Domark. We're introduced to Devlin McCormack in the year 2160, a man who just buried his long-lost son, Danny. After a death said to be caused by a work incident, Devlin receives word that his son did not die by an engineering accident, but by foul play. Devlin must explore the vast, futuristic world he calls home and learn more about his child's suspicious death. The game was released with a 12-page comic which detailed a bit of the McCormick family lore, which I think is really neat. You don't see things like that anymore, you know? While investigating Danny's murder, Devlin discovers that he was not alone through his short life and was instead in a gay relationship. The Orion Conspiracy was the first video game to ever explicitly use the word homosexual. Though it didn't get that great of reviews, it remains a big piece of queer gaming history. In Phantasmagoria 2, A Puzzle of Flesh, released in 1996, we're put into the shoes of Curtis Craig. The character, written as a mentally ill man plagued by hallucinations, finds his office rival dead. Curtis fears he may have murdered the man during a psychotic episode and must escape accusations from the police. Curtis is canonically revealed to be bisexual while talking to his therapist, revealing that he has feelings for a gay coworker named Trevor. This makes him the first playable character to be bisexual in video game history. Of course, it is incredibly noticeable that queer people tend to be the subject of crime in early video games. If you've heard of the bury your gays trope, this may not be of any surprise to you. However, when LGBTQ people are used as punching dummies, it does become painfully apparent. It's not only important to represent the community within media, but to treat them with dignity. Creating a gay character just to harm them isn't good representation, it's simply showing queer people going through it. We're getting better bit by bit, but staying alert and aware and thinking critically about what you consume is a great way to help further progress. As we enter the 2000s, we start the 21st century off right with The Sims, released for PC. Not only was The Sims a breakthrough game in the world of simulations, but it provided an entry into the world of gaming in general for many. I'm sure most of you have at least some idea of The Sims gameplay, so I won't bore you with the details, but all Sims who were eligible for romance could date other Sims of the same gender. Although they weren't allowed to marry until The Sims 2, a gay Sims couple could move in together. After the success of the first series installment, the original Sims garnered some criticism for freely and openly allowing gay relationships. However, EA remains strong, and it's still a huge staple of the series to this day. The Sims 4 has even introduced gender customization mechanics and pronoun options, delighting genderqueer gamers. Go EA, you finally did one thing right, I say as if I haven't spent paycheck after paycheck on Sims packs. Now, I'm sure many of you have forayed into the world of Star Wars, but did you know that a Star Wars game introduced the first canonically lesbian character into the franchise? In 2003's Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, we meet Juhani, a Jedi Guardian, who displays same-gender attraction and was implied to have a lover by the name of Beleia. I'm not 100% sure, okay? I can't read. Game co-designer, a gay man named David Gator, was shocked when the idea of introducing a queer character into the storyline was presented. He remarked, quote, "The first time it came up was on Knights of the Old Republic with Juhani, and that wasn't my doing. I was in fact completely startled by the idea that not only was this a thing that could happen, but more so that my fellow developers, the vast majority of whom are straight men, would not only be okay with it, but actually want to include it. I'm not sure I can express how that made me feel." David's quote really struck a chord with me because it's so interesting how people don't even think it's possible to move forward. It takes somebody stepping up, being scared, and saying something to move things along. Sometimes you just have to be the person who tries. Yay, I've been waiting for this one. Okay, I get to talk about Fallout. Though the first game we'll be discussing here came out in 1998, I wanted to lump the entire series into one straight shot, or gay shot, for easier digestion. Fallout has always been a pioneer of its kind in both mechanics and heavy representation, and it deserves a good, thorough discussion. Fallout games, en masse, tend to all follow a similar storyline. The world has been turned into a post-apocalyptic wasteland by the nuclear destruction of the Great War, leaving behind a scene speckled with both technology and horror. You must fight your way through the dangers of your surroundings, make alliances with other survivors, and find your place in the new ecosystem. In Fallout 2, you are able to choose between a male and female character at the beginning of the game. The interactions with NPCs stand as the core of the story, and in this installment, you're given the option to marry one of two siblings, Miria or Davin. You can choose either character regardless of gender, making Fallout 2 a huge pioneer for role-playing games. Although the gay marriage segment is treated semi-comically, the option is still there. A few other minor characters were also portrayed as queer, such as Miss Kitty, who the player could date and sleep with. In the third series installment, Fallout 3, and the widely acclaimed spin-off game Fallout New Vegas, the romance option is not available for whatever reason. However, that does not mean that the LGBTQ representation in Fallout was left behind. Let's start with 3. Released in 2008, Fallout 3 included a wide variety of queer characters. From the gay couple of Flack and Shrapnel to the flirty apparel shop owner Anthony Ling, Fallout 3 has you covered. The game not only features lesbian lovers in the Ghoul Hotel owners Carol and Greta, but a same-sex adoption in a video game through their son Gob. This amazing move was made at a time where less than 12 countries worldwide supported queer adoption. Fucking wild, right? Thank you, Fallout. In Fallout New Vegas, a game that's a personal favorite of mine, we meet another handful of characters which fit the bill. Veronica, my companion of choice, by the way, a Brotherhood of Steel scribe, will tell you the story of her estranged lover, Christine. The two were tragically ripped away from one another by Elder Elijah due to the Brotherhood's disdain for queer people. R.K. Gannon, another companion option, identifies himself as gay. If you get to know him enough, he will tell you a little bit about his love life as well. A DLC for the game, Old World Blues, features the character of Dr. Dalla, the first character in the series to describe themselves as genderless. They are treated very sexually, which is a little bit disconcerting, but hey, they're there, so. The character themselves can gain perks in the game, which allow them special abilities. 2 of these perks, differing by the character's gender, allow you to basically be bisexual. One perk allows you to charm women, while the other allows you to charm men. New Vegas also features a more political approach to queerness, with different factions found within the game having different perspectives on acceptance. My heart will always belong to the streets of New Vegas. Last but not least, we land on Fallout 4, which was released in 2015. This installment brings back the ability to romance NPCs after many years, with the character beginning with either a husband or wife depending on initial gender choice. No, you don't start gay, but as a country, we can change that. This marriage doesn't, last very long, so you're soon free to explore your options. All romanceable companions are available regardless of gender, and the game continues the Fallout legacy of featuring queer characters everywhere. Deb and Kay, lesbian business owners who look suspiciously like your aunt and her friend, raise a daughter named Meg together. You can also find a hunter named Andre Michaud who is seen mourning the loss of his husband. I could make an entire video about Fallout's queer representation, but I'll leave it at that for now since we have plenty more to cover. Not only did Fallout run in blazing with an unabashed showcase of LGBTQ+ themes, it also introduced the idea into a genre that was heavily marketed towards straight men. I've only recently ventured into the realm of Fallout, but it has very quickly become an all-time favorite franchise for me. I mean, what can I say? I love women and big weapons. In a similar vein to Fallout, the Fire Emblem series also made massive strides for the queer community. The first Fire Emblem game to be localized for international release, The Blazing Blade, featured Limstella, a genderless character who is referred to using they/them pronouns. The Blazing Blade was released in 2003, 4 years before Radiant Dawn, which featured the character Heather. Heather remarks that she joined the army to meet cute girls and continues commenting on her sexuality throughout the game. In 2016, Fire Emblem Fates was introduced. This game allows for same-sex romances and introduced Soleil, who was often so attracted to women that she would fall over. Yeah. Unfortunately, a plotline in the game sees her speak to the protagonist about her feelings, which prompts them to spike her drink in an attempt to ease her fear. This story was incredibly controversial and was removed from some versions of the game. However, Fire Emblem has continued to introduce gay characters in other titles. Alright, my friends, it's time we discuss League of Legends. Bet you didn't expect that one. I'm more of a passive observer of those type of game communities, but I was very surprised to find out that the 2009 multiplayer game has a large cast of queer characters. You really learn something new every day. I was afraid of the League of Legends community, and I'm still afraid of them. League has covered almost every base, with lesbian, gay, bisexual, polyamorous, and pansexual characters filling their wide range of personalities. Like I said, I am very much not involved in the LOL community, so I enlisted the help of my friend and League expert Hope to learn more about the reaction to this inclusion, because I was surprised. In short, I was curious about how the player base itself took the news, as the online rumors spread about the League of Legends chats aren't always savory. In response, Hope said, "From what I can tell, there's a pretty decent divide among players when it comes to the queer rep in League. Surprisingly, it has a decently large queer fanbase who obviously love the characters, but I've also seen a decent amount of bigotry." A year or two ago, Riot, League's developer, released confirmation that 2 male characters were canonically in a relationship, and I saw some disgusting stuff said about it. From where I sit, the hate is the minority, at least here in the US, but I know Riot censors some queer characters because they have to cater to foreign players, devs, and governments, what have you. She continued on to mention that different game servers may have opposing levels of bigotry, and it all depends on individual experience. Thank you, Hope, for your League of Legends expertise. Love you. Moving on, I'm sure many of you will have anticipated the game next on our roster. The Last of Us, released in 2013, follows the grizzled character of Joel and his young companion Ellie, 2 survivors of an apocalypse brought on by a zombie-like fungus. You engage with a heartfelt, tear-jerking story of found family, love, death, and zombies as you traverse the in-game world. The Last of Us received an HBO TV adaptation in 2023, which propelled the already acclaimed game into an explosion of popularity, which means you've most likely been aware of its beautifully portrayed queer characters. The aforementioned Ellie, a young survivor of the Cordyceps pandemic, is revealed to have lost a best friend and crush to the affliction. In the game's DLC, titled The Last of Us Left Behind, you can follow Ellie's love and loss of Riley from their first kiss to their final moments. The relationship was praised for its realistic, non-stereotypical portrayal of queer love, and many note it as a breakthrough moment in game history. There's also Bill and Frank, which, after watching the HBO show, I can't discuss without crying. In the game's sequel, The Last of Us Part 2, a character named Lev is introduced, a transgender boy exiled from his village due to his transition. Don't worry now, y'all, I didn't forget Life is Strange, I would never. The episodic, story-based game series published by Square Enix not only redefined video game storytelling for many, but also put you in the shoes of Max Caulfield, a young girl who can rewind time. I guess she's not that young, but I feel like everybody younger than me is an infant. I'm like sitting here sucking on old women candies because I think I'm gonna lose my voice, which I already have lost my voice. It's terrible. In Life is Strange, actions have consequences, and each choice you make matters, which is terrifying to me, but you know. After Max's childhood friend, Chloe Price, is shot, Max uses her spectacular ability to turn back the clock and save her life. This prompts a beautiful story of reconnection, chance, and complicated feelings. Max is canonically bisexual, as is Chloe, with their intricacies and identities being explored throughout the game. The two can end up in a romantic relationship with one another in certain game routes, however, the entire game centers around their general friendship. In whatever fashion you choose to play the game, Max and Chloe deliver an incredibly nuanced story that we've never seen before in a video game. Now, if I sat here and listed off every queer character in Baldur's Gate, you'd be looking at one of those 8-hour video essays detailing the rise and fall of a niche internet micro-celebrity. However, it is important to recognize the massive impact that Baldur's Gate 3 has had on the acceptance and development of truly well-intentioned queerness in video games. The incredibly detailed character creator allows you to customize almost everything about your gender presentation, from your chest to your fucking equipment, which you do use a lot. The romance options, each coming with their own special roots and conflicts, are explorable by anyone at any time, and the world of Baldur's Gate is filled to the brim with LGBTQ+ representation. Not only are a large range of romances available, but a laundry list of genderqueer characters too. With its Game of the Year win, widespread popularity, critical success, and internet virality, it set a new standard for video games in general, especially queer ones. So, if you're an indie game fan, you're probably wondering why I've mostly neglected to mention indie games thus far. Good eye. Indie games are the heart of the queer representation we have now. The hard work of small development teams, the passion of a single person, and the true, genuine love and care that goes into indie games is the reason queer people have good rep at all. With Caper and the Castro leading the way, indie developers have always been willing to put themselves out there. Stardew Valley comes to mind, taking the concept of the beloved Harvest Moon series and improving it beyond our wildest dreams. And Undertale giving representation and a shoulder to lean on to those in need who always felt different and unloved. The Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood showcased a witchy transition with grace. Dream Daddy took over YouTube in the 2010s. Unpacking needed no words to tell the story of a queer woman's journey through life. Night in the Woods, Hades, Coffee Talk, Spiritfarer, Stray Gods. Indie developers have always been willing to make the strides needed to move forward. They deserve more praise than I can even give, but from the bottom of my heart, indie developers, I love you. You are the heart of this industry. This video is in no way an exhaustive list of queer games. I tried my absolute best to showcase large milestones and different approaches in this video, but I obviously missed some. A few were omitted as to not be repetitive, like GTA, Assassin's Creed, and Persona, but I'm sure there are plenty of titles that fell through the cracks. Feel free to tell me in the comments below about your experiences with queer games. We all need progress, acceptance, and kindness, and that can so often be achieved through community and art. The queer community is a beautiful thing, and the best way we can preserve our history is through speaking up, cataloging, and creating. A huge thank you to the LGBTQ Game Archive for providing a lot of this information, as well as the sources linked below. As we can see through queer gaming history, change takes time to achieve. We've made a lot of progress since the 1980s that we need to preserve and save, but there are still plenty of advancements we can make. If this video inspired you to take action, or even just explore the actions you could take, remember to check out the Fandom Forward Save Our Progress campaign, and consider filling out the training interest form linked below. It's a tough world, especially for marginalized communities, and the road to progress can feel long and tiring, but there is always hope and always a way to pitch in. Thank you again to Fandom Forward for sponsoring this video, and let's get our world ready for more queer games. Alright, we're done. We did it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate my members so much. Thank you guys. Let me know about your experiences with queer games. I appreciate your opinions always. I'm so excited. This is my first actual project thing. So thank you for your support. I appreciate it so much. Stay safe, stay wonderful, my friends, and I'll see you next time. Sorry I sounded sick towards the end. I'm not. I don't know what's going on, but I love you. Bye.